Hello, everyone, and welcome back to demo number 2 of understanding this workbook. This session, we are going to dive in a little bit deeper into understanding this default setup page and how it's going to be leveraged, as well as our client invoices and some of the magic that's going to happen on the back end with all of our monthly summary reports. So let's go ahead and just dive in. As you recall, I did say in my last overview of the workbook that you should, before you do anything with your client invoices, you really should come in here and set up your default information. And so that's where we're at right now. One of the first things I want to bring your attention to is I have this comment right here where it says paste your Google review QR code here and again on your client invoice template. Okay. And so if you recall, I did tell you that these worksheets are in a locked, protected view. So you need to unprotect it in order to get your QR code placed here as well as on your invoice template. So let's walk through that right now and see what that looks like. So on your home tab up here, the home ribbon tab, or not the home, but on your ribbon tab where the home button is, you want to scroll to the right and about halfway through, you're going to see the tab for review. So if you click the review tab and then scroll over a little bit more to the right on this dashboard, you'll see where it says unprotect sheet, or you can protect the workbook. So we're not protecting the workbook. We've protected each individual sheet. That way it can have more functionality for you. So I want to click on unprotect sheet and I want to use that 6-digit passcode that I gave you, which was all zeros. And I want to put that in there. So now I can pick my QR code up and I can drag it over here and paste it into this box. Now, I just want this here for you guys, so it's just forever in these workbooks, and that way it's just a quick, easy, accessible link if you ever need to have it just kind of handy. Okay, so once we put that in there, I want to come back up here, and it's very important that we come back up here and we protect this workbook again. So you can either change the passcode if you want, or you can continue to use the same passcode that I've already set. Whatever you do, be sure to come back up here and protect the worksheet. Now let's come over here to the invoice template and let's repeat that again, okay? So we need to come up to the ribbon tab, go to the review tab, click unprotect sheet, input our passcode, hit enter, and then we can drag and move our QR code over into the box. All right. And then again, we want to lock this workbook, our worksheet. So we're going to come up and we're going to click protect sheet, put the same passcode in, and voila, we're done with that. All right. So now let's come back over here to the default section. And just so you guys know, I've put all my contact information in here. So for anybody that wants to just schedule an additional demo one-on-one with me regarding this workbook, you can do so here. Just click this link and it'll take you straight to my calendar to set up a meeting. If you guys want to shoot me an email to give me some feedback or some recommendations or suggestions on what you'd like to see in this workbook, I would also love to hear about that as well. This is my direct line at home office, so you can call or you can text this phone number. And then, hello, I'm Sheree Miller. I am your phase 2 onboarding business coach. So I've inputted all that information, and so you can see when I've done that, it has auto-populated already over here to my client invoice, okay? It's also already populated into my invoice template. So I don't have to do that anymore moving forward when I get into a client invoice, okay? This last option right here, or item here in the company information, is selecting the home state that you're in. So don't get confused with this being correlated with your state sales tax, whether you need to charge for sales tax or not. That's not what this is related to. This is specifically being chosen. So some of the CT bids metrics that we're pulling regarding shipping and pickup is going to be connected to this line item here. So that's all that it's pertaining to in a sense of functionality with this workbook. Again, if you guys have questions on your tax rates and whether you're supposed to be charging your tax rate of where your business license is, if you're in other counties around, because a lot of you guys do work outside of your area. And so those are things that you need to direct specifically to your accountant or do some research on your own. Okay, I'm not going to be able to provide you any information regarding that. Let's hop over here to the fixed expense area. And so again, you guys are going to have one of these workbooks for every month, right? So what I recommend is getting your first workbook, putting your default information in it. I would leave your direct cost over here for your fixed expenses. I would leave these blank because every month you need to be inputting the actual direct cost that you spent. If it is a fixed direct cost, then go ahead and plug it in. But if it's something like payroll processing that varies, or maximum that varies, or maybe your marketing budget's varying from month to month. So if that's what if it's a variable fixed expense that's kind of fluctuating a little bit here and there, leave it blank. So every month you can input the actual direct cost that you spent on each of those fixed expenses. This is essentially just functioning as a helper cell that is being leveraged on that last sheet, the monthly metrics summary tab. In order to get your actual net profit for the end of the month, you need to have your fixed expenses in here to the penny so it can be tracked on that back end, okay? For those owners that are taking an owner's draw, this is critical because you can't even begin to take money out of the business at the end of every month if you have no idea what your net profits actually are, okay? So this will help you start to see those numbers a little bit more clearer. And then finally over here, we have our employee list. So you want to put your employees' names here. Oops, it looks like Stanford is a little over. Let's fix that. Why is that? Isn't it taking both of it? Oh, it will when I update it. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why that's bugging me. So next we want to just talk about this employee list. So you're going to put all your employees' names here. This is going to populate what their initials are. Again, this is used as a helper cell for all of your client template, all your client invoices, because it's auto-populating on there in the back section where the employee metrics are for every client template. You're going to input the direct employee pay rate here. So what you hired them to pay them at, you'll put in this box. And then you've got these two green boxes up here that you need to select something in. So the first one is going to be selecting your loaded labor percentage rate. And so again, if you click on the box, a drop down arrow will appear. And so I've just given you a few options here to select. If you aren't sure what loaded pay rate percentages or what your loaded pay rate percentages, first you would want to come over here to the glossary, and the loaded pay rate definition is the very first one. And what's that consisting of? So it's typically going to be your payroll taxes, Social Security, Medicare, federal unemployment, and state unemployment taxes, as well as your workman's compensation, okay? If you don't know what all this breaks down to being, because each one of these is like a different percentage that's being hit, so you need the accumulative percentage across the board for your total loaded labor rate percentage. So if you don't know that, that's going to be a phone call that you need to have to your payroll processing company, asking them so they can give you a little bit more guidance on that, okay? I'm gonna just kind of pick one here at 24. I can't quite remember where Kathleen's at, which is all these examples, but I'm sure it's pretty close to 24. And then finally, this other green box over here is what your direct labor cost percentage is. So again, you want to drop down and you want to pick a percentage. So if you're a 10-year owner starting to use this workbook, then you might already know what your actual direct labor cost percentage is. So just select one of wherever that is for you. If you're a brand new owner, you're still figuring all that out. You're still trying to create teams and processes and efficiencies. And so we just recommend that you guys land somewhere between 25 and 33%. So for right now, we're going to just do 28% for this. Okay. So now we have all of our default information inputted in here. The next thing that we need to do is we need to calculate this sheet. So if you remember me mentioning that I have this workbook set as a manual calculation option to help keep it quick and updating at the control of you versus every time you click in a cell, it updates everything that you've done so far. It really does slow down these Excel workbooks, especially one that's like this size. I did it for a couple of days before I realized what was going on and how can I fix it. And I don't want to pull my hair out anymore, which is great. So what we want to do in order to manually calculate everything is we want to come back up here again to our ribbon tab. And now we want to come over to formulas. And once we're in formulas, we want to come down and scroll to the far right and see where we can see the calculation options. So if you drop that arrow down, you'll see where it is manually selected. If you want to take it back to an automatic one, you can, but I promise you, you're going to want to pull your hair out at the end of it. It's going to take so long because again, I have all these color columns and stuff, and those things are slowing down the workbook. Okay, some of you are going to open this workbook and it's going to tell you that there's 89 or 81% or 79% of this workbook not functioning, optimizing correctly, or optimizing at its fullest potential. And that's just why, because there's a bunch of empty cells that just have colored fill into them. Okay, and so it really does slow down this workbook a lot. So keep it at manual. I promise it won't be that much of a pain in the butt once you just get into the habit of it. So once you have all your information inputted, you can come up here and hit calculate sheet, or you can hold down the shift and the F5 key at the same time and it'll calculate the sheet as well. So once we do that, we can now see what our average employee pay rate is, what our average our loaded labor rate percentage dollar amount is, what our average loaded pay rate is based off of our percentage rate, and then what our billable hourly rate should be on an average. Okay, and so with these pay rates going out, we really should be charging somewhere between $73 and $75 an hour for for this owner's territory, for their business. All right, so that is our default page. So let's hop over in here to this client page and let's start inputting some of this information. Make this workbook a little bigger here. All right, so over here on the left side of this invoice or of the worksheet, we want to input all of our client tally information, right? So this is going to be all of our clients' information as well as some invoicing dates and whatnot. So I'm going to just cheat the system here a little bit, and I'm going to just copy and paste that info over here. Oops. Yep, I sure do. All right. So this will be your client's information. I know it's just mine right now. And then over here, we want to input our date. So because my birthday's coming up, hint, hint, I'm going to put my birth date in here for everybody. So you guys are all reminded. And then I want to put an invoice number. So you guys are going to need to generate some sort of invoice system that works for you. For now, I'm just going to use my softball number 15. And then my invoice ID. This is going to probably help with your filing folders on your client's behalf. So for me, if this were I would do the first letter of my first name and then the first 3 letters of my last name. And that would be my client ID. And then here finally is the state sales tax rate. So you want to input your tax rate percentage here. Again, this is something you're going to need to reach out to your accountant or do some research on your own to figure out the logistics of, when you pay or when you charge taxes, when you don't charge taxes, and how much you're charging taxes, whether you're in your county that your business license is in, or if you're in a different surrounding county. Okay. It does vary from state to state, so there's no way that we could possibly know all of that information on all the individual states and counties within those states. All right, so now let's get into this bottom part where it's income from sales. Okay, so let's start plugging in some numbers and um seeing how this workbook is going to work for us. All right, so let me pull up this other client's info. All right, so we're going to actually base this off of a massive project. It was potentially originally pitched as a clean out on 3 different properties, 1 client, 3 houses. And oh boy, this was a big project. It took about almost 2 months from start to finish. It was a hoarded project. And so initially that's why it was pitched as just a straight clean out. But as most of you know that have dabbled with clean outs, once you get in there and you really start to pull stuff out and go through it, you start to find a lot of value within some of those items. And so that's what happened. And so she had to pivot to then do a clean out with a liquidation option. And boy, was it totally worth it for her. And so this is going to be a big, massive invoice that we're generating right now. It is going to have 4 sales reports wrapped up into 1 client invoice. Okay. And so let's get started inputting this information. Let's start here with the deposit that was paid. This owner took a $5,282.22 deposit, and she took that via credit card. So she's going to select credit card. But if we took this as a check, then you would want to select check, and then you would want to write the check number here. So if you're giving this workbook to an accountant or a bookkeeper, this is going to help them track how the form of payment was taken, what that check number was, and then again, what the date on the date that you took that check and deposited it. Okay. Now, this lower part is going to be all of our income coming in from any of the in-person sales that had taken place. So let's start over here to the far right where it says net sales revenue minus taxes. So here's where you're going to want to put all of your in-person revenue, the sale generated. Okay. So for this particular owner, it was all kind of private buyer sales, all these 3 different things. And so she just put them in all separately because then they happen separately. Just get the rest of those in. So the next column is going to be the sales tax that was collected. Unfortunately, this owner is in a state where there is no sales tax collected. So we're going to leave it blank for right now, but you guys will find your sales tax if you're using Square and you run that Square report. It'll easily tell you how much cash was taken, how much credit card revenue was taken, and what your total tax was that was taken. So you can run that report and have that information to bring in over here. On your CT Bids sales reports, there's a column specifically for your sales tax that you collected as well. This next column is going to be your credit card percentage. And so this is going to be the pass off costs that you're going to pass off to your client. Okay. And so if you're telling your client that you're going to be charging them a 4% credit card fees, then you'll want to click the box, drop the arrow down, and select 4. Over here in the column next to it where it says credit card revenue, including taxes, well, this is going to be, again, a number you're going to get from that Square report if you're using Square as a merchant server or whatever merchant server you're using. You should be able to run a report that'll tell you, again, what the credit card revenue was, what the sales tax was, and what the sales revenue was, okay? And so for here, if you are if any of these transactions were paid by credit card, then for one, we want to come over here and select the form of payment. So for this $154, she collected cash. For the $1,740, she collected that via credit card. So we're going to select credit card for that. And because you need to input the total credit card revenue, including taxes, we're going to essentially just put that same 1740 here in this box. But if she had, say, $250 in taxes, then this now needs to be $1,990 instead of the $1,740. Okay. And then for this last 310, she took cash for that as well. Okay. All right. So now that we've done the first part of our client tally, let's go ahead and see the calculations for this so we can see what that's looking like for us. So again, we want to come up to our ribbon tab and we want to go to the formulas, and then we want to hit calculate sheet, or you want to just hold down Shift and F5 at the same time. Okay. So once you do that, you will see some interactions start to happen here. Over here where the remaining balance due, this box has now turned red with a big old fat negative $7,400 in that box, okay? Also, you can see that our credit card percentage that we took, the 4%, it has automatically calculated that for us now. So now we're charging $69.60 onto the client, which you can see over here on the client invoice, how it is populated into the credit card and PayPal fees. Okay. Essentially, these columns right here are kind of obsolete after this part of the inputting. Okay. They're not going to be applied anywhere else except for the credit card revenue over here. The taxes that you collected, that's going to be something that you need to report separately with your accountant. And then the credit card revenue, well, that's essentially just being used to determine what our credit card fee needs to be, okay? So the only number you really need to be looking for over here is going to be for this column right here. 2204 is your total in-person sales net revenue. And so that's populating over here on the client invoice sheet as, for the most part, it's coming in over as a negative. So the sale proceeds are as a negative, the client deposit is as a negative. And so you can see down here at the bottom, it's telling you the amount owed to client is 76 or 74.16. And you'll see at the bottom or at the end of this where this will change, okay? All right, so now we have the online auction or other online sales information to input. And so a lot of people ask, what other online sales are there if we are only supposed to be using the CT Bids platform? Great question. But there are several owners that do kind of dabble with Facebook Marketplace where, primarily it's furniture pieces. When they haven't been able to sell them on an auction or in person, and they have like an extended period of time after auction pickup day or estate sale day where they can try to find other avenues to sell it. Some owners will, list those and sell them on Facebook and have some success with that. And so if you're doing that, same rule applies as above. You're going to input all that information. And then if you took that all by credit card or you sent them a PayPal invoice, then you're going to want to include those that credit card revenue here so it can, apply the 4% credit card tax to the client. Now for the CT Bids online sale, you're probably wondering why these are all grayed out and not green like everything else up above. And it is like that for one main reason. It is going to now calculate everything CT Bids related for you. So if you take your cursor and you scroll to the right on your workbook, you're going to start to see now this additional section that is essentially just tracking all of your CT Bids metrics. And then here with this berry color and then a little further with your salmon color, this is where you're going to paste the bidder report and your sales report, okay? And once you do that, it's going to populate some information here for us. Some of this information, I'm not going to lie, you can find it and see it very clearly on your seller app, but that's just a little bit of the information. There's all these other metrics that this one sales report and one bidder report are going to be able to generate for you within seconds. We're talking like 33 different metrics, which is invaluable. I cannot stress enough, okay? So what we're going to do is now we're going to go get our sales report and our bidder reports, okay? And so I really highly recommend you having those ran already before you come start doing this worksheet. And essentially what you want to do is, let me just scroll back over here, is you want to take and copy row 2, column A, all the way over to column AI, and then all the way down to the end of the workbook. And you want to copy that and paste it into the sale report that we are working on currently. Like so. All right. And then we want to go back in and do that same thing for the bidder report. We want to come in here, pull up the bidder report, and we only want to take row 2, column A, all the way over to O, and again, all the way to the bottom of the end of the spreadsheet. Okay, so let's copy that, and then we will paste it into our bidder report. All right, so again, just a reminder, this is about 4 different sales all wrapped up into one big sale report that I put in here. All right, so once we've inputted our sales report and we've inputted our bidder report, then you want to come back up here to your ribbon and formulas tab so you can calculate the sheet. All right, so let's calculate the sheet and see what it produces. So it's telling us that we had a total of 587 bidders. And out of those 587, we had a number of 174 winning bidders. Okay. Again, some of these metrics that you're going to see right here within the spreadsheet are things that you can see and find when Joel sends you an email or when you run your admin report on the seller app. But what it's not going to do is really break down things like, you know, how many of your bidders were out of state versus in state. So for this owner, her primary target market is within her state, which is kind of cool to see. She's not shipping as much as she is managing and dealing with pickup. Or maybe some of these local in-state people are also just having things shipped. So you can start to see some of these metrics over here. All right, so let's just take a gander over here real quick. And now you can see all of her total metrics across the board. Just within seconds of pasting and hitting this calculate sheet, we have almost all of our 33 CT bids metrics. You can see that there are still a few things missing. And so we'll get those inputted here shortly in a second, okay? So now what we want to do is slide back over here. And now you can see all of our CT bids information has already been inputted in here. Now, I know some of you guys, you're properly invoicing clients a good week or two after those auctions close, and you're probably having to make edits within this spreadsheet. So you can still continue to do that. So let's just say, for example, if this item right here, let's just say these items right here needed to be returned. Actually, I just picked 2 items that didn't sell. Go figure. Let me scroll down here to everything's all say 0 sold. What is that? Oh, that's okay. I see what it is. Okay, let's just say, for example, if we wanted to edit this truck, maybe they have decided they can't afford it, they can't buy it, or whatnot. So for whatever the reason is, if you're going to have to make some sort of modifications to it, then you want to do that directly here. So if the sale price changed, oops, oh, I can't move it over. If the sale price changed, let's just look at the second one at 81.50. Say it went down to 71.50, you would just want to come in here again. You're going to have to come into the review and unprotect the sheet. All right, and then you're going to have to come in here and make that edit here, but also make the edit across the board as well. So you need to make it in the sales price area. You need to make it in the buyer's premium area, and you need to make it in the tax area if you have any of that information. Okay, so it's not just the sale price. You need to make sure that you change it across the board. Also, what I have recommended in the past with owners when they're dabbling with edits and modifications to their client sheets is to highlight those columns that they made any edits on. That way, you know, if you ever have to circle back here, what happened and why those numbers were different than the original sales report. Okay. So once you again have made those edits, you want to come back up here and you want to protect that spreadsheet again. Okay. All right, so let's slide back over here to the client invoice. All right, so you can see that it's automatically pulled over your buyer's premium of $7,364. The credit card revenue here, again, is including your sales tax and your buyer's premium and your sale revenue, because that's what PayPal is basing their fees that they're hitting you with. So if you're not aware of that and you're only putting the sale revenue and multiplying that by 4%, then you are leaving some money on the table. I'm just letting you know right now. So this is telling you how much credit card revenue that needs to be taxed with that 4%. Here's the total amount that we are charging for the sales tax, or not the sales tax, sorry, the credit card percentage fee. This column right here is telling you what your total sales tax that was collected. And then finally, this number over here is your combined total sales revenue, CT bids, and in-person estate sales combined. Okay, so that is essentially the top part of this income coming from sales. All right. Again, if I come back up here to the formulas tab and I calculate sheet, it's now going to populate some more information down here for me. It's inputted now my tax rate. The PayPal fees have been applied. And if you look down here for the liquidation revenue, it is automatically populated our in-person sale revenue, our CT bids online revenue, and your buyer's premium revenue. Okay. So next thing we want to do is now we want to start inputting what the charges are going to be for the client and the project at hand. Okay. And so what I would do honestly is when you get a signed contract, I would come in here and create your client template. Okay. And so I would start putting some preliminary information in here, like the information that you put in the quote. I would start putting it in here so you know kind of where you were for the quote and you don't have to go hunting down that quote that you gave the client. Okay. All right, so let's go through and see what we did here for this client. All right, so again, this owner made quite a different deal, which does happen sometimes. And I think this one worked in her favor. And so when you see some of these numbers, you might be a little shell shocked at how low they are, but you'll see in the back end how it all made up for it. All right, so now for the charges to client. So you can see that we have two columns here. One is going to be your direct cost column, and the other is going to be what your markup cost is going to be. Okay, and so we created two columns here essentially so we can feed the direct cost automatically into your monthly profit summary tab. And so that way you don't have to input those numbers again on that sheet. It's going to automatically pull it over there for you. But we don't want to include any markup cost with that because we want that number to be the actual bottom line direct cost number. So we can get to our project net revenue number, that actual number. Okay. And so what you guys are going to do is you're going to input that direct cost here on the left side. Because the labor is not being automated right now, for various reasons, you're going to input your total billable hourly rate that you're charging your client here in this markup cost column. Okay. So essentially all the labor that you're charging for any sort of liquidation, setup, prep, sorting and organizing, photographing, describing, all that stuff, right? So whatever that fee was, essentially, you're going to input it here. This is, if you can read this note, it's telling you already that this is going to be your total liquidation labor cost. The markup cost essentially is going to be that billable hourly rate. All right. Our supply cost here Again, this is about just what she's charging every client, roughly kind of on every project, give or take a little bit. So 207 here. And then if you guys are going to be adding a markup cost for everything that you're doing, then again, you're going to want to have, you're going to want to add your markup cost dollar amount here as well. So what I would recommend, you know, and things like your supplies and stuff, maybe just doing like a 10%, 15%, markup cost to those supplies. So at $207, you know, this would be, oops, about a $20, markup. I don't know why that doesn't seem right, but maybe it is. Yeah, it's $20.70. Okay. And then down here where it says liquidation revenue, we want to select the commission rate that you have set for this client. So for her, she set a 50% commission rate. That's why she took such a low deposit to begin with. And then if you guys are putting some sort of minimum on your quotes and stuff, if you're saying, you know, 4,000 or 40%, whichever is greater, then you would want to essentially put that minimum there as well. So when you get to go calculate this, it'll decide which one ever is greater, it's going to pull down here. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's calculate the sheet so we can see where we're at so far. All right. So you can see that the direct cost gets, you know, calculated and totaled right here underneath it. But this markup cost, this number is the total markup cost plus the direct cost. And that's what's giving you this total of $2346.95. So this number, $2346.95, that total project revenue, that's the number that's getting, or $96.95, sorry. That's the number that's getting populated over here where it says liquidation fees onto your client's invoice. All right. Then if you look at the liquidation revenue invoice, it took the 50% commission because obviously 50% was greater than the $4,000. If let's say we had put 26,000 in here and we recalculated the sheet, then it's going to pull down the 26,000 that we had set for our minimum versus the 50% commission rate because the 26,000 was greater than the 50% commission rate. Okay. All right. So moving down now over here for the cleanouts, this is where it gets real exciting. All right. So her markup cost for labor was $26,023.47. And then her direct costs for like roll-off dumpsters and equipment and stuff, that was $2782.74. Her donation removal cost was $800, and some clean out supplies that included PPE type supplies, that charge was $337. Then if we still are using that same 10%, whatever your guys' rule is going to be for markup, again, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do want to, the option is there for you just in case. So let's just say we do that 10%, and then that would be 270. This would be 80, and then that would be $33. Let's calculate the sheet, and we'll now see what that total direct cost was versus the total markup cost. Again, if we populate, or if we come over here to the client invoice and we look at the clean out, we'll see that the clean out fees are a totaling $34,245.95. All right, sorry about that. I noticed a miscalculation, so I wanted to fix that real quick. Okay, so really the clean out fees are totaling $30,326.21. And then same thing with the relocation. we don't have any for this project. We're going to skip it. And then we'll move down into the miscellaneous services, which there were some miscellaneous services here. So, oops. They charged a total of $11.28 for marketing the sale, and then they had $1,840 in other miscellaneous services. So again, we're gonna do 10% of this. Put that stuff there. And then also, if you guys want to make notes, you can do so as well. So we can put any kind of notes in there that we want. All right. So now I have some notes in here, just so I can remember what's going on and what these charges were for. All right, so we're almost done here. So now we want to scroll down here to the bottom, and we've got one more box that we got to interact with, and we need to select what our royalty and non-brand fund markup percentage is going to be. Okay, and so this is going to vary for several of you, and several of you are going to be on two different royalty and markup percentages depending on when you bought your territories. So this year was the year that we did make some adjustments and increase the royalty percentage. So some of you who bought a territory last year and then bought a second territory this year, you're experiencing that currently. And so some of you are going to be on a total combined of 7% markup, and some of you are going to be on a total combined of 8%. Okay. So select the percentage markup that you are. And again, let's calculate the sheet so we can see all the magic happen. And so now we can see down here, our gross revenue has been $74,757.31. Our subtotal for royalty is going to be $98,874.57. This is the number that you will be taxed on for your royalty and markup percentage. And then the invoiced revenue was $67,392.47. This discount for services are going to be two different things. Okay. So if, let's say, for example, this client who, after every project, after every auction they did, some of that portion of the money went towards some of the labor that was being accrued, and then some he paid for as well. So this client gave her $10,000 in throughout the project. So if you look over this note, it says enter this number as a positive amount. So for credits that are going to be applied towards services. If we're offering them a discount, for example, again, you still want to enter that number in as a positive number for any discounts that you're giving. We'll calculate the sheet, so it'll show you here, it's negative in the parentheses. And then if we look over here on our client invoice, now it's giving you two different line items. So there's a discount line item of $1,000 and a credits line item for 10,000. All right. And so now we're done inputting all of our information for the client. And we're now done generating the client invoice. And so the amount due to us is $7,839.58. So if you scroll up here to the top of your client tally info in the income section, you'll see that remaining balance due is now green because it's money that's going to be coming into us. It's not money that we have to pay out to a client. If it was red, then that is insinuating that we have to pay $7,839 to the client. So once we get this balance paid, we're going to come here and we're going to select, the method of payment that we took. And then the date that we took that, right? And so we are done with the client's sheet. If you guys want to put any information here, you can. You do want to make sure your Google review QR code is here. Silly me, I didn't actually paste it to these other additional client invoices that I had already created. But remember, it is here on this one. So I could just come back and copy this real quick easily, which maybe I should do just so I can show you this printed view real quick. Come back here. Paste them like so. All right, so now let's go ahead and copy our Control P so we can see what this printed version is going to look like, okay? And so, ta-da! Fantastic, right? Okay, so now that we're done with the client tally part on the left and we're done generating the client invoice on the right, let's come over here and now let's look into what our sales metrics look like, okay? We still have two boxes here that we need to input. So there is going to be another video on here and a step-by-step guide to the note that you're seeing here. But essentially, you need to, before you come into the sales report, you need to have already imported your bidder report into the CRM in Fran Connect. You want to add it to your shared buyers group as well as your contacts. And then you want to enter the amount of successful uploads. Those are going to be your new bidders from that client's auction after you imported it. And so for here, this client, I didn't quite get to keep up with all of them, but I'm pretty sure it was roughly somewhere about 125 total new bidders with all four auctions that we did. So we'll put that there. And then if we hover over the total count of bidders, the CRM, post the CRM import, this is going to be what that looks like, right? So again, you're going to export that bidder report, import it in, filter the contacts. So once you've imported it into the CRM, then you want to hop over into your contacts. You want to filter your contacts for CT bid bidders and CT bid buyers. Once you do that, then that window will then show you what your total count of the filter search that you just did of the CT bids bidders and the CT bids buyers, what that total count is. So this total count here was, I believe, 4,000, yep, 4,065. So we'll put that number there. We'll come back up here to the formula tab and calculate the sheet. And once we've done that, now we can start to see the rest of our CT bids metrics populate. So let's just kind of talk about some of these metrics real quick and the significance of them and kind of the cool factor of some of them, in my opinion. This is going to be a very valuable call out item for you to tell your potential clients that you're, consulting with, right? That 98% of your items sell. So you have a 98% sell through rate. That's really good. That's adding value as to why, if I'm a client, I want to come work with you instead of the competitor. Let's see. Let's talk about some of these shippable metrics that we're looking at here. So if we're looking at the number of items that are marked shippable versus not shippable, the shippable items were 63 out of 416. Okay, so this is going to speak to that metric as to why we've got 309 local people bidding versus it was like 184 or something, 107 out of state bidders, because less than 10%, I would say, or no, a little bit more than 10% of her auction she's making shippable, right? And so to track, like, the shippable versus pickup ratio, which is 70% of this was pickup versus shippable, that's going to be a metric that we're going to want to track to see, like, is it worth maybe including more items on our auction to have shippable, maybe even start dabbling with some furniture being offered as shippable option. So tracking some of this is going to help you just kind of narrow down some of that a little bit more. Up here, you'll see that there are two columns, an average lot value with vehicles and an average lot value without vehicles. It's great to see what that average lot value was overall for the sale when you do have vehicles to include, but I don't really think that's a realistic lot. Like, what was your average lot value? Because if you take out those cars and the vehicles that you're selling, it's going to significantly drop down that average lot value. So I put it in here so you guys can see both, because some people do like to see both. If we look at our views of engagement, out of all four of these sales, she had 34,000 views. That's awesome. That number is a powerful number in a sense of, if I'm talking to another potential client in a consult, I can share that our sales are averaging X amount of views each sale. That's going to be a testament to the marketing that you guys are doing and putting forth into these auctions, right? What's our bid to view ratio, right? So we have average number of views per listing and average number of bids per listing, but what is that view to bid, our bid to view ratio? 24%. So this is a number that I want to try to engage a little bit more and be higher. I want to be converting closer to 100% of my bids or my views to bids versus 24%. Okay. So this is going to be a metric that I'm going to track a little bit more. I'm going to try to do different things with my listings and maybe my promotion of the items. Maybe I do live previews. Maybe I do Facebook live previews, or a mixture of both. Okay. If we look a little bit more into these bidder metrics, now we can start to see that we had, 587 total bidders within this auction. 174 of those were winning bidders. 21% of the sale was new bidders that we hadn't engaged with before. So that's another fun number for you to throw out at your consultations. When you're generating upwards of 20 and 30% new bidders every auction, that's great. That means you're doing things different every time and you're hitting these potential target markets all the time. What was the number of repeat bidders this sale? Well, out of the 587 bidders that we have, 462 of them were repeat bidders, which tells us that we have a 79% customer retention rate, which is great. You need to have this customer retention rate as high as possible. It needs to be as close to 100% as possible. That means that you're having repeat customers all the time. It means the new customers that you were able to convert are still engaging with you on a regular basis, which is what we want to see happening with you guys and all your sales. If you look at some of these financial metrics, because we've inputted what that total marketing cost was, we can now determine what our customer acquisition cost was. So for this sale, the 125 new bidders that we did acquire, it costed us roughly about $9.02 to acquire those new bidders. Okay. So this is something that we want to keep as low as possible, but retain as much value from from it as we can. So again, if we're not tracking this stuff and we just don't know what it is, then we don't know how to pivot and make adjustments when necessary. And then probably my favorite number here is going to be this reserve price success ratio. And so this is something that we really can't offer you right now anywhere else, but now you can start to track it and you can start to see what is your reserve price success ratio. Do you have a good reserve price ratio? Do you not? If you do, what are you doing? How can we get other people to have more successful reserve prices? If you're not, then this is going to be something that you're going to want to use to leverage those clients that want to put reserves on so many items within the auction. So this is just going to be a fun number to kind of see how it develops over time for you guys. And then finally down here, percentage of tax exempt buyers. I'm sure some of you are like, why do we need to know that? Well, you need to know it because these are your key buyers. These are people that are really going to help you out in a pinch. Those small sales that just aren't worth a full, auction or even a flash sale at, but if you can start to really see who your tax exempt buyers are, the local ones, even at that, then you can start to target them in a different way. We can generate them into their own buyers group for yourself where it's just tax exempt buyers for your area. And so anytime you run a private buyer sale, you can generate an email campaign and just share it to those local tax exempt buyers. Or you can call them up directly and say, hey, book buyer, I got 20 bookshelves full of books that I just can't efficiently list online to make it worth, the client's time and my time, right? So are you interested in coming in and making us a private offer and just buying out for all these items? So again, that's going to be a cool little number for you guys to start tracking also as well. And you guys can look into the rest of these metrics as you start to dabble with this spreadsheet. So that is essentially the client tally, the client invoice, and the client's sale metrics broken down. When you guys send your client invoice and you attach any kind of like sale reconciliation, I would start to include some of these metrics that you have here so they can see really, how many views that you had, what was your average lot value, how many new bidders that you got here, how many bid to view ratio, what did that end up at? I would definitely supply some of these metrics within your client's reconciliation so they can see some statistics of how their sale did and again, that's just going to be a selling tool for you later on in the future. Because this client, if it becomes an ambassador for you, then they're going to be sharing their experience with their friends and family and trying to promote your business and directing people to you when they are in the same similar need that they found themselves in. So don't be scared to share some of that information as well with your client. All right, now for the really exciting part, let's scroll to this back end where we're going to see all of our employee data come into play, okay? So I do want to just kind of explain this section right here that is kind of blank. These are all helper cells in between here, okay? So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll start to see all the helper cell information there. And so essentially, if you want this back end of the worksheet to work for you and you want to start tracking your employee metrics, then you need to start implementing a SKU system that mimics how I've set it up in this workbook, okay? And so essentially what that looks like is this right here. Here's your example. If you guys are doing your SKU numbers where you have an employee marker in there, like their initials, and the client's initials, the room initials, and then a lot number, I'm recommending that you put it in this order. So you want to put your client's initials first, which is carrying transitions here in this example, CT. Then you want to input your employee's initials, and we're going to use mine, which are CM. And then the area in the house where the item is located. So right now we're using LR for the living room. And then you want to follow that with the item number in the living room that it is. So for this example, we're using 001. And so my SKU number would read like such. The first four number or digits are going to be identifying the client and the employee. And then the last 4 to 5 digits are going to be identifying the location in the house and the item in that location that needs to be pulled. All right. So if you guys are using that kind of a SKU number system, then this back part is going to be very beautiful for you. Okay. Let me pull up these employees' hour rates real quick. All right. So we have, I'm just going to do a copy and paste situation here. All right. So real quick. So once we've inputted all of our employees' labor hours, so this is why you've got 5 columns here of green inputting data fields. I know when you look at it, it seems and feels very overwhelming, but it's also depending on how you guys are tracking your labor hours for your projects as well. So if you guys aren't really tracking, like when you're scheduling them and you're using your scheduling apps like When I Work or Connect Teams, if you're not putting like today is going to be sort and organize or clean out day, or this is going to be, grouping or shooting, auction, lotting day, marketing or pickup day or anything like that. If you're not doing that, then really you just need to put it all into one of these categories, whether it's going to be the sort and organize, which is kind of what I would recommend, or the shoot and describe hours. So if you're not tracking them individually on what it is that you guys are doing, It doesn't matter. It's going to end up pulling a lot of these, most of these cells over anyways. It's going to be pulling the sort and organize, the clean out, the shooting, describing hours, and whatnot. It's going to be pulling that into some of these metrics that are back here on this back end. So let's go ahead and let's calculate this worksheet so we can see what's going on back here. So you can see here that it is pulled over the employee initials, and that's just so when you guys are moving this spreadsheet farther over to the right, you can still kind of easily see which employees metrics are what, okay? Right here, let's just stop here because you can see that this back part of the workbook is going to be very interactive with you, okay? As you can see right here, we had a total amount of lots that were listed for this sale was 416 lots. But you can see that right above it, it's reading a false read, which is telling me that something in this column is not adding up correctly. And so now I need to come back and look and see what's going on, right? And so chances are your employees have inputted their initials incorrectly on some level. At least that's what it was for this particular owner. And so let me show you so you can see where it was reading false before. If I come back over into my default page and I put in these initials that were incorrectly inputted, because it took me some time, but I did find them. Oops. All right, so I calculate that sheet and then I come back over here to my client sheet and I calculate this, you'll see that these now initials have populated over. And now what was a false read has now disappeared because now it's pulled over one listing for MM, and that could have been Kathleen Montgomery, one over for JS, and that could have been Kim Johnson or Kevin Price or Pierce or I don't know I can't remember his last name. LM was likely another Kathleen Montgomery instead of K, she put L. LJ, that's probably Lila, and then AW, and then K0. So really you want to stress to your employees to make sure that they aren't what I call fat fingering the phone and making sure they are verifying that the SKU number is inputted correctly. Otherwise, it's going to be a nightmare for you it's going to be a lot more time consuming trying to figure out where those missing lots are if you are wanting to figure those out. And I need to, oops, need to just, sorry, widen this column a little bit more so we can see those numbers. Okay. All right. So now we can start to see the real magic of this employee breakdown start to happen. Okay. So if we scroll over just a little bit more back here, we can start to see the total lots listed. So this is going to break it down for each employee, how many lots they listed and what their average lot per hour is. Now, I know looking at this number, it looks really low. And again, this is because we're taking this particular owner, this is how they do it. And so I just made this whole worksheet kind of based on that, which because I do agree with it. I do feel like it needs to be the accumulative of like the sort and organize, the clean out that is getting you to those grouped lots to shoot them and describe them. And so this average lot value is really breaking it down from the overall hours that it took for the sort and organize and the clean out, as well as the photographing and the describing part of the job. This column right here is going to be your average lot value for the employees. I don't know why it's not populating here. I'll have to look into that because it should be. And then this is going to break down all of your individual liquidation sale revenue for each individual employee, as well as the contribution revenue for that setup fee that we charged, as well as all the clean out fees that we had charged. So all the labor that we had charged for the clean out fees and the labor that we charged for the sort and organize, that's all populated here. That was a cumulative of $28,143.42. So depending on how many hours each employee worked on the job, determines how much percentage of this contribution revenue, that's how it got broken down, okay? And so then when we have our contribution revenue broken down for each employee, and we have our loaded labor cost, now we know that this project's total labor cost was $15,062.86. This also included 80 hours of the owner in this project, okay? And so if we take Kathleen's hours out of here, which, because she's not on salary, but if we were to take her hours out and recalculate this sheet again, you're going to see that it dropped our loaded labor cost to $13,078. So that's really more accurate on what this loaded, the labor cost costed her. But essentially what you're seeing here from these two columns is the difference between, or we're taking, not the difference, I'm sorry. We're taking that broken down setup and clean out labor contribution revenue, and we're subtracting the total labor cost for each employee. And then this next column over here is going to give you the difference of that number, okay? And so unfortunately, if we hadn't charged appropriately for the setup labor and the clean out labor, then instead of these numbers being the teal color like you're seeing right now, you're going to see them in red and in parentheses like you are right here with the labor cost. If you get that kind of information in here, then you need to have some sort of reflection period where you are making those adjustments in your pricing or in your labor cost effectively, right? So it can only be two things. A, we're not charging enough for our services, or B, our employees are taking too long to execute the project. So something has to give. It can't stay, if these numbers are red, they cannot stay red. Let's just play around with that, for example. So let's say we didn't take a huge clean out cost like we did. Let's just say we took 10,000 in a clean out services. So let's scroll back up and scroll back all the way over. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy. But now you can see, whoa, it's really interacting with us, right? Now it's all red and it seems like the spreadsheet's yelling at me, right? Which I did that intentionally. I wanted you to be awoke with the information that's being handed to you at this point. So you can see now, if we charged 16,000 less for the clean out labor, then we have taken a negative hit with our labor cost, and that's going to affect us in the long run in this back end, okay? So you can start to see here where the difference is of what we charged and what it costed us and what we had made from that. This column over here is going to be your contribution revenue, your commission contribution revenue. And so this is essentially going off of whatever commission revenue that you selected. So this is 50% of whatever their liquidation sales revenue that they generated was. So these are the numbers, the actual numbers of commission that each employee brought to the table for you. And same thing with the buyer's premium. This is how much buyer's premium each employee was able to generate for you. This column right here is your total gross revenue for each employee and for you as the business. So it looks like because of the buyer's premium and the commission, we were still able to come out over here in the green with a positive gross revenue number, which is good to see. And then finally, this back end is going to be, the percentage of contribution for setup and clean out, commission, buyer's premium. So if you really want to know kind of how much, how that got broken up, that's the formula right there. And then the direct labor cost is 30%. So our labor cost is exactly where we need it to be. It's kind of on the higher end, but for a first owner, first year in business, still, learning everything and training and, establishing processes, 30% is a win all day long in my book. Now we can start to see over here in this net revenue and net revenue margin percentage, we can start to see some of the areas that we need to provide feedback for, or really just kind of understand what's going on here. Okay. And so, for example, this this employee right here is Whitney. She is only the one, she's really just doing the marketing here for this project. And so she didn't have any labor cost into the actual project, or she didn't have any overall revenue contributing to her labor hours that she worked for this job. So that's why you're seeing her over here at, we lost essentially $149.32. What I would say to this is, we need to be charging more in a sense of our marketing fees, because if this is only being based off of those marketing fees that were generated, we didn't quite charge enough to cover the labor cost here. Some of these other ones, like this employee right here, if you look, you'll see that this employee, they're negative because they didn't have any sale revenue, right? And so they really just had very minimal interaction on the project. They're also, some of them are new employees or part-time employees. So some of that you want to take into account. But if it's regularly showing up like this, you guys want to monitor it and, provide some feedback for your employees when that's happening. Let's come back over here real quick and let's take and put Kathleen's hours back in so you can see what that does to the spreadsheet. So what now that's doing is it changed our direct labor cost percentage. It took it from green to red. So now it's yelling at us again. And then over here underneath, it's kind of yelling at you again. It's telling you, warning, labor cost exceeds 30%. So when you are getting that kind of information thrown at you, you have got to do some pivoting and adjusting somewhere, whether it's, again, on that productivity side where we're driving the team to work harder and faster and get out of these projects quicker, or are we making adjustments on our pricing element? Okay. So let's go back over here and put in the actual cost, which was what? 26,023.47. All right. So we'll calculate that again. All right. So that is your client's invoice in a nutshell. Okay. So we went over invoicing the client, keeping track of all of the client's incoming sales and outgoing charges. We've covered the CT bids portion of this and how you're going to input your sales report and bidder report here, as well as we've went over and covered your employee metrics sheet tracker here. So if you wanted to see really what Kathleen's project looked like at the end of it, everything is beautiful as it should be. She's profitable. Her gross revenue for this project was 59,625. Her labor percentage is right on the money at, about 25. And her total net revenue is still about $44,562. All of her employees are in the green and making her money. And all of her employees' direct labor cost percentages are down here as well. So we can start to see, you know, who had, the most net revenue and compare that direct labor cost to it. Kathleen's killing it. This is Kathleen. She's got 11.11 direct labor costs into this project. She cheated. She had several vehicles that she had listed. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't cheat, but this was a great project for her. Super valuable. All right. So now let's see what the rest of these tabs have in store for us. So let's come into the shipping and handling, and let's just say, because I don't really know what this number actually is for Kathleen, but let's just say that she had generated $250 in shipping and handling revenue for that one week of sales. Okay. So once we do that, then we want to come into our monthly reporting summary. And so now what we want to do is hit this button to watch some magic really happen, okay? So once we do that, it's going to populate everything from our client invoice tab here. And this is going to be the number that we use to report our sales into Fran Connect every month. You're going to have to manually transpose this. Sorry, there is no exporting. And I'm pretty sure copying and pasting is not really an option either. You're going to have to just plug and play with this information. All right. And then if we come back here to the monthly profit summary tab, what I want to recommend is you coming in here and putting your direct labor cost, which was, let's take a look, 15. Oh, let me take Kathleen back off of here. So that was 1378 and 86 cents. So 078 and 83 cents. All right. So you want to input your labor cost here. Some of you are probably asking why I didn't automatically populate that over into here. And that's just because, again, all of your loaded and billable hourly rates are included in your labor cost on that other sheet. And that sheet is just essentially tracking your CT bids metrics. It's not correlating like your packing, unpacking, resettling, or any like miscellaneous services that you're doing. Okay, so this is going to be the only cell that you have to input data into on this sheet right here. So once you have inputted your labor costs, then you want to come up here and you want to hit this update profit summary tab. And oh no, let me end that. Okay, we're gonna have to work through that problem. All right, so apparently we're gonna have to, oh, you know what? That button might be locked. That might be what's going on. Now we can hit this button and it's going to tell you that the monthly profit summary has been updated successfully. Yay. So hit OK to get rid of that. And you can see where it's pulled over our client's name, the date, the invoice number, the gross project revenue, the subtotal amount for royalty, the invoice revenue, Once we've inputted our direct labor cost, it's now telling us what our overall labor cost percentage was. What we've seen on that spreadsheet again was just our CT bids only metrics, okay? It's not like the overall project, including everything else and all that other revenue. It's just the sale revenue. Our total supply spend was $544. Our total advertising spend was $1,128. Our miscellaneous expenses totaled to be $5,422.74. And then depending on what royalty you had selected, it's pulling over 5,900 for your royalty percentage and another 1,977 for your non-brand fund. And then if we scroll over here a little bit farther, we'll see, oh, why are my shipping profits coming? We will see the project net revenue, your project gross margin percentage, and your net gross project revenue percentage. And then this should be populating your shipping and handling, but for some reason it's not. So voila, there it is. All right, and so ta-da! That is your monthly profit summary tab. And then finally, let's hop into this monthly metrics summary and see all the magic happen here. So again, if we click calculate sheet, now we're starting to see all of our metrics pulled together for the whole entire month. This again is just one client because we've only done one invoice so far, but oh, let me fix this real quick. Just realized that's going to cause a problem with this sheet. So let's recalculate that. So that should still be, oh. Okay. Ta-da. All right. So there we go. So now overall, we're seeing essentially the same information we just seen on this monthly profit summary since we only have the one client invoice. But now you're going to start to see how your fixed business expenses are playing into this final financial metrics up here. So at the end of this, if this was the only client that she had serviced this month, her net take home profit for this project is $32,788. And her total monthly net to gross profit percentage is 86%. Of course, these are not her actual fixed expense total cost. So this will fluctuate a little bit for Kathleen, but in our make believe expenses right now, it is showing a very profitable project for her, which is awesome. And then again, if we click this KPI button here, oh man, this is really going to be a problem here. It's going to again populate all of your CT bids metrics over here. And then same thing with your employee metrics. It's going to auto populate everything here. And it's going to give you these pop-ups that let you know that it's been successfully populated when it's done. Okay. So you're looking at a very similar, oh, why didn't that come over? I'll have to figure out why that's not populating over right now. And again, well, the average value wasn't populating on the other one. Okay, so I'll get that fixed so we can see. But this is overall what your employee metrics are going to look like, and those CT bids metrics are going to look like once you're done. If you want to see kind of what that looks like, let's just copy this client invoice real quick. So let's right click and we'll make a copy. So we're going to select this box to create a copy, and we're going to put it in here between invoice last and client one. So once we do that, All right, it's now populated our second invoice down here. So if we come over here to the shipping and handling, let's just add $500 this time. All right, and we'll calculate that sheet. We'll come to the monthly reporting summary and we can hit this. And then if we calculate this sheet, and I forgot to do this last time, but it wouldn't have mattered because we hadn't populated any info on that sheet. But it's going to again interact with you over here too. So it's going to tell you what your gross margin ratio is, 62.43%. It's going to come in teal if it's in a good position. If it's not and it's too low, then this is going to turn red, and then a note's going to pop up here letting you know that your gross margin ratio is of concern and we need to adjust it. If we come back over here to the monthly profit summary, let's just put let's put that 15,000 in for labor cost revenue, and we'll run the profit summary. We'll hit OK. And so you can see, because we had a slightly higher labor cost the second around, our labor percentage was affected there, and our net revenue was also affected in our gross margin. If we come to the employee metrics page, we can calculate this sheet again, and it's going to apply both of those. And then let's hit our CT bids. And now you can see it's essentially doubled all the information here, as well as the employee metrics. Again, it's going to tell you when they're all successfully uploaded. Okay. All right, guys. So that is essentially your monthly client invoicing, metric tracking, sales reporting workbook in a nutshell. I'm going to end this session here with this one, and we will pick back up on another demo, generating a couple different other client invoices. So thanks again for joining me on this. I really appreciate it, and I hope you appreciate this tool and use it wisely. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.